All right, so today for the Confusianity podcast, I'm joined by my friend Maree.
Hey, how you doing?
In case you can't tell, she's Australian, and or she, as she has informed me once before, as I believe she's from Australia.
Australia,
yeah. I've probably totally butchered that because it's been a while. But so as far as I know, she's an atheist, but we're going to hear a little bit about her life story and her take on religion and whatnot, and basically whatever she wants to share today.
Yeah, sounds good. I would say that I'm an atheist.
Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that agnostic is a nicer term. I think especially when people ask you about it.
Like atheist is kind of harsh.
There's something,
to people.
There's something kind of angry associated with it. Like, I'm an angry atheist. Oh, it's a little like feminist in a way.
Kind of, yeah.
It gets some people's backs up a bit. But I think, deep down, like, I know I don't believe in a higher power. So if we're going purely by the definition, then I am, in fact,
very purely an atheist.
An atheist, yeah.
So have you been accused of being an angry atheist, or does it never come up because you basically surround yourself with people who are also atheists? So it's like, especially in New York City, it's a non-issue.
I mean, I don't think I've ever had anyone give me a hard time for not being religious or for being an atheist. But I would also say that when I am around people who I know are religious, I'm very respectful. I would never come out and say oh, well, I'm an atheist. I kind of take the point of view of okay, well, that's great. Not really my thing, but that's great. It's working for you,
right.
So I try to just kind of be respectful and not make them feel like I think that they believe in a silly man in the sky, which is what I think.
Right. You don't want to be judgmental.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that for a lot of people, not for everyone, but for a lot of people, having a religion, being part of a community, brings them a lot of joy. Mm-hmm. And, it can give them something to kind of look forward to. It can give them something to kind of think to maybe when they're going through a hard time. So I definitely don't want to take that away from people, even if I do think that, if you really think about the base level of it, it is silly. I went to, last year, I went to an Easter service.
Was it a Catholic thing or a Protestant thing?
It was Catholic, yeah.
Okay.
And so I went, funnily enough, because a friend of a friend was playing the organ there. And he's a really cool dude. He's a great pianist. That's what he kind of does as his day job so that he has a living to go and play in all these bands.
Oh, really?
In the city.
So he's completely not religious, but
not
he has a
religious
job performing at church services.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't actually think I'd been to an Easter service before in my entire life. And I went into it thinking oh, this is going to be cool. We're just going to hang out in this beautiful old church, going to listen to some music. Man, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. There's a lot of standing up, sitting down, standing up, sitting down.
Singing all the songs.
There was singing. There were old men in dresses singing. There were lightings of candles and people holding up gold books. For me...
Gold books?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess it was a Bible, but it was a really fancy one.
Okay.
And I was just if you... As someone who, isn't religious, this was the most hysterical thing to me. I was this is super weird.
So much pomp and circumstance.
Yeah. It was so bizarre. And I had no idea what to do at that, when you turn to people.
And it's peace be with you and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that?
Right.
What's that?
And they all kind of knew what to do, right?
Everyone knew what to do.
Everybody's Catholic there.
Yeah. I was actually with my boyfriend who grew up religious, but is not at all now, and is kind of, I would say that he's aggressively atheist.
Okay.
He kind of kicked me because I had no idea what to do, and kind of to tell me to sort of, turn around and do things.
Did he grow up specifically Catholic, so
yes.
you kind of knew that already? Okay,
yeah.
But
he's more, I would say he's still a very spiritual person, but yeah, definitely not into Catholicism.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he's an angry atheist, but he still considers himself spiritual.
Well, I guess I shouldn't say he's an angry atheist, because he's not.
You're furthering the stereotype of it.
Because I am furthering the stereotype, but I guess there are things about the religion that make him angry. Things
like Catholic priests abusing children.
Exactly. You know, and we kind of, you know, I think I was telling you about the royal, the commission.
The stuff happening in Australia.
Yeah, and Cardinal Pell recently got charged. And so, you know, the investigation has been going on for years. And so, you know, my boyfriend and I have been sort of like sharing, you know, articles back and forth while it's been going on.
Is he American or Australian?
You know, I don't actually know.
No, your boyfriend.
Oh, my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Oh, I do know the nationality of my boyfriend, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about Cardinal Pell. I assume he's Australian. I assume he is, but, you know, you never know. No, my boyfriend is American.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you give him a little bit of the Australian side.
Yes.
He gives you a little bit of the American side. I got it.
Yeah. So, yeah. But, I mean, I was baptized Catholic.
As a child?
As a child, yes.
Okay.
As like a cute little chubby baby in a big dress. So
right. So you didn't choose it for yourself?
No. And I did, so I'm not sure what the school system is like here, but in Australia, at least when I was in school, it might be different now. Like in primary school, which is like our elementary school, there's like one class a week for religion. And so the school would offer, I guess, the religions practiced by the local community. So I think in my community there was Catholic, there was Greek Orthodox, and maybe Church of England as well. And then for anyone who wasn't religious, you basically got to like play. So I did that for a couple of years, not for too long. I think my parents just enrolled me in it because I was baptized Catholic.
And were your parents religious at all? Or they just went through the motions?
My dad definitely wasn't. My mom was raised Catholic, and, you know, I've actually never asked them, but I kind of just assumed that, you know, my brother and I were baptized because that's just what you do. Like, for them, like, that's just what you do, right? Excuse me, but, yeah, I mean, like, when I was growing up, we weren't religious. Like, we didn't go to church. Like, I never really kind of saw my mum like going to church or doing anything like that. But as I got older, she kind of reconnected with religion. So when I was about 15, she started going to Hillsong, which is
I've heard that name in terms of they do music, right? Isn't it like Hillsong, like a big? Okay,
they do a lot of music. I guess like some people kind of say they're like evangelical. So it's a slightly different kind of, I guess, subsection of Christianity.
I think that's probably more how it is in America, like the churches I've been to. I think that would be classified as evangelical.
Oh,
like,
really?
Like the praise and worship songs and the more contemporary style.
Yeah, it's
and
very...
Jesus relationship
Yeah,
kind of thing.
There's a lot of like love, like it feels like more about Jesus and less about God in a way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of singing and it's incredibly upbeat.
Yeah. That's more what I experienced in my 20s.
Yeah, okay. So my mom started going to Hillsong when I was about 15, and I would go with her on occasion, and it was fine. I was happy to go to just like spend time with my mom. Wasn't really like for me. There was definitely like a point where someone in the church came up and talked to me about joining like a youth group and stuff like that, and I kind of said I'd think about it, and I never went.
You were just humoring them.
I mean, I think I did think about it for a second, but I think I just knew it wasn't for me. Like, I know that when I would go there, I would feel almost like overwhelmed. I don't want to say I didn't feel uncomfortable, but I felt overwhelmed. It was there was just like so much like almost like emotion in that room.
Yeah.
And for me, like that just wasn't what I kind of needed. I found it exhausting to go to.
So, if it existed at that time for you, do you think you might have been more drawn toward a more intellectual, kind of not so in your face worship style? Were you curious about religion and had questions and were like sort of seeking at all? Or did it not even seem, it was just a completely moot point?
Yeah, I don't think I ever had a point where like I really was kind of like is this something I want? Is this something I want to explore? Like, do I have questions about, you know, why we're here or what our purpose is? I think I kind of, for me, was always more, and it's going to sound very selfish, but always a little bit more focused on like, what do I want? And like, what's important to me.
This was your MO in general.
Yeah, I would say so.
You thought about yourself and what you want out of life just by default.
Yeah, I would say so. And I'm not really sure how that sort of came to be honest with you. Yeah.
See, I'm often jealous in a way of people who grew up like that, because for me, the last 10 years or so have been such a process of deprogramming. Because imagine, like, well, you don't have to imagine, that's how you were and how you've been, right? Now imagine the opposite of that, where it's not about what you want, it's not about what you feel, you know, none of that is relevant. It's about what God wants.
Yeah.
It's about what the scripture says. It's about, you know, all of these other factors.
Yeah.
And if you're raised in that from age 0 to 30 or whatever, imagine how that affects you, right? Because it's like...
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And then when you start having inclinations of, well, I want this, or I think I like that, and it's attached to sin, right? Which is the whole reason why you're going to burn in hell for eternity is sin. And it really fucks with your head. And that's why I feel like I'm all fucked up in the head.
Yeah.
So to deprogram all that, but it's very hard in an older age to deprogram that, because like I'm trying to get better about, it's really like self-love in a way.
Yeah.
Like doing things that you want to do in life and not feeling guilty about it, not feeling, this is splurging, like even getting this hotel room.
Yeah.
You know, it's my birthday. I don't do this all the time. Like I have the funds to do it. Let me get a room for one night and for my birthday in New York. But I had to overcome that even to do something like this. But like I'm getting better about it.
Yeah.
But it was so hard growing up in religion for me to just go with your gut instinct about what you want out of life and what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because you're taught that it's bad.
Yeah. As I said, I honestly can't even imagine that. And like, I don't want you to think that like, when I say my focus was on like, what do I want? It wasn't that I knew or that I got it right. I feel like there was like a lot of years of like getting it wrong before I got it right.
But isn't that really what life is?
But
it's a process of trial and error and experiencing.
But like, I feel grateful that I've had those experiences be like, no, that thing I tried, that definitely wasn't for me.
Yeah.
You know, so I can't even really imagine like, you know, in your situation, all the things you maybe didn't try at the time that you wouldn't know if they're for you or not. Like that just seems like so silly. But what you were saying about that it all connects back to sin, like again, I find that so...
You have no concept of what that's like sin.
I
like
have no idea. Like
right.
I can't relate to that at all.
Yeah.
And you know what you said in your the trailer for this podcast around the idea that, you know, Jesus kind of like sacrificing himself for us so we don't have to live with sin or however it goes. The idea that we all start off bad, to me that's exactly the opposite of how I see the world. Like I truly believe that no one wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm going to be a bad person today. Yes, we all do bad things sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes, most of the times, for most people, they're unintentional. Sometimes they're intentional. But no one is waking up and being like, I'm going to be the biggest dickhead today and cause pain to people.
I mean, there's a few sociopaths out there, but really, yeah, you're right. Most of society are just regular people, you know, doing the best they can and trying to make ends meet and enjoy.
And so I just think the idea that, like, we're all like these terrible people and like someone had to like give up their life for us, I just think that's kind of silly. Yeah. Like, has no one kind of like looked around? I'm trying to think, like today, for example, this morning I did a Pilates class and there was a guy next to me, it was his first class and he was getting a bit confused. And so, you know, during the class I would kind of be like, oh, you know, you want to put this here, you want to do that. I just did that because that's a nice thing to do.
Right.
I didn't even think about it for a second, you know.
And you're not doing it to score points with God
exactly, or to, you know, to make myself feel better. It was just the right thing to do. You see someone struggling, you're like, hey, buddy, you just want to put your foot there. You're cool, you got it. Like, go you. Yeah, way to try something new. Yeah. You know? So...
It's really just common sense and just natural...
Yeah.
I mean... if you're raised like a normal human being, you'll probably have those instincts. I want to throw this out there because this is something I got into a conversation the other day about, which is this idea of morality. And like a lot of Christians will argue that atheists don't really have a right to call anything immoral or moral or right or wrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they claim that they can because they're not just a person making it up, it's from God.
But God is a make-believe person in the sky.
Well, the God that they're referring to is from this Bible,
right?
That was written by men and compiled by other men, like thousands of years ago. And I keep making this point on Instagram, wherever. It's just like, there's a meme that I saw, and like I can kind of recreate the same logic in a million different ways. I love it because it just totally nails it for me, which is like the napkin religion, you know, and it says right here on the napkin, like, this is the true word of God. You know, it says right here on the napkin, this is the truth. You know, it's like, it's so self-referential.
Yeah.
That's not proof that this is the one true religion because it says so on the napkin.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what the Bible
does.
I
mean, I could write on the wall that I'm a
Right.
supermodel. That doesn't mean I'm a supermodel.
Right.
Like, I'm still going to be like a 5'8", size 12 girl. You know what I'm saying? So.
Right. Yeah, but then it comes down to what's real. And then we do live in a strange world nowadays where there's this perception of reality.
Definitely.
Like subjectivity versus objectivity, right? And I remember when I was a Christian, I used to say some of these things, but Christians, now I see a lot of them are really hardcore about this, which is they say, there is an objective truth, and that objective truth is God. And the only thing that's real and objectively true is God and that reality and that truth. Everything else, what you believe is subjective and this and that. But I'm like, it just so easily crumbles. I mean, you keep using the word silly.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
I know, I mean, it is kind of silly though.
Yeah.
Like just when you trace the logic that people use.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's a lot of like funny use of logic when it comes to religion though, when you think about it. And like maybe we'll come back to that because I do want to delve into this like a little bit deeper. But I mean, I think that truth is something that is especially important, I think, at this point in time. You know, when we're thinking about, you know, the American government, I was going to say our government, but not necessarily my government right now, but the American government, you think about, you know, how news is reporting, you think about the rise of social media and like how younger people are going to cope with that. And so like I do think like having a concept of what is true and what is not is like very, very important for like everyone to grasp. And I don't think that it is fair for, it's okay if for you, your religion, if you believe that it is true, but that does not mean that it is true for everyone else.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, since you brought up the internet and the culture, like, do you think pre-internet, pre-2000, was it easier for people to arrive at actual truth? Or do you think it's easier to arrive at actual truth now, post-internet?
So, interesting you say this, just because I was having like a discussion around like what it was like pre-internet the other week with a bunch of, you know, 30-somethings at work.
That we used to live.
Exactly. And, you know, I was talking about how when I was a kid, you know, I would literally go to the library and there would be all these encyclopedias, there would be all these books. If I wanted to find something out, that's how I would find it out.
Right.
And, you know, of course, like I was younger, so the answers I was looking for were probably simple answers in kind of like question answer. They probably weren't like complex and nuanced, you know. So in that sense, with access to kind of like all the information online, I do think that it is a bit easier to get answers to more nuanced questions. However, I think it requires a lot of critical thinking.
Right.
Which not everyone.
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in
education.
American schools, they don't teach critical thinking.
I didn't know that.
Secondary education.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, like, critical thinking, I think, is just like, it's such an important life skill to have.
Yeah.
Learning
I would argue maybe perhaps the most important.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on what you're doing, but it's the type of skill that everyone is going to use in their life. You may not use it in your career, but you're going to use it in your life. And so when I think about, people who maybe haven't been taught or haven't learned how to think critically, and all the trash that's out there online, like, I can understand how you can read, conspiracy theories and, totally like fake news articles and believe that they're true, So I do think that like we have a responsibility to teach like younger generations how to think critically, and also like just help others around us, and kind of, and not in a condescending way, like, oh, like you don't know what critical thinking is, you don't know how to think about that, but just kind of like nudge people on the right path. Like,
yeah. I mean, when I think of critical thinking, I think of, it's like first you equip an individual with the skills, analytical skills essentially, to take a lot of information, process it, and come to your own conclusion about it using the skills of critical thinking.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be situations that arise, conspiracies, religion, politics, hearsay, stories, gossip, where people can use critical thinking and arrive at different conclusions.
Yes, totally.
But at least if we could get to that point, I feel like that would be a huge step forward.
Yes, I agree.
Because what we have now is across the whole gambit of just... The thing that bothers me so much about religion, and it doesn't matter whether it's Christianity or Islam or whatever, it's like, especially when people are brought up in it from a young age, everything has already been determined for them.
Yeah.
Like, there is no acceptance of new information or new narratives. It's because they're always going to filter every new experience that happens through that existing filter, and it's always going to fit back into that old narrative. And as long as that narrative, that paradigm is working for them, whatever that means, they're going to stick with it. And unless that paradigm gets blown to smithereens, they're never going to process any new information or experience. Like, an example I give is, and I don't want to throw my dad under the bus here, but back in the 2008 election, around the time when I started, because I used to be red state Republican, Bush voting, Fox News guy. That used to be me. And McCain just selected Palin as his vice president.
Oh, gosh.
And I was out somewhere, and I just saw on the TV, and I heard her speech, like her first speech, and nobody knew who she was at all. And I heard the speech, and I'm like, it was a good speech. Like, she nailed everything that she needed to do, and I'm like, wow, this is a game changer. This fresh-faced looking, attractive woman who's conservative and well-spoken, and little did we know, but to do a speech,
moment,
I just saw that and I was like, oh wow, this is a game changer. I think McCain's probably going to end up winning this election because they're going to get the women vote, they're going to get the conservative vote.
Yeah.
And my dad was very much so hook, line, and sinker. Loves Sarah Palin, everything. But here's where the problem comes in: is that in the coming weeks we actually got to know who Sarah Palin is, interviews and her background, things she says, things she is all about. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is who she really is, But my dad, on the other hand, was like, no, it was already predetermined. This is what I mean, where she said all the magic words in the first speech, and that's done. That's it. To this day, he'll still defend her as being like a great Christian leader and whatever. So that's what I mean when I say that worries me, when people, their minds are already made up before they even come to the table.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of that, especially within religious circles, whether you're Islamic or Christian or Mormon or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that people, like friends, find very annoying about me is that I change my mind about things a lot. And people can find that really frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, one day I'll feel really strongly about something, and then maybe a week later I'll be like, well, not a big deal.
You would never make it as a politician in America because you're not allowed to flip-flop.
I'm a flip-flopper.
Right.
But the thing is, and I can understand why that's frustrating for the people in my life, because they can't kind of like keep up with what I think about
What's
one
Maree
thing.
think this week?
Exactly. But, I'm okay with changing my mind as long as I'm changing my mind because, like, I access new information.
Right.
Like maybe I learned something new. Maybe it's not even information. Maybe I talked to a friend about it and I heard their perspective on it, and now I think about it slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying around it's like the first step in critical thinking. Like because I'm able to think critically about things and form an opinion, but the next step from there is then being able to have a dialogue, whether that is physically like speaking to someone, or it's, you know, continuing to do more research and getting more information, and then being able to kind of like challenge the own opinions you've made at that first step.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
The thing that's so sad is I feel like that's so basic. Like that's how everybody should just fundamentally operate, is you think one thing and that's fine because given the information I have right now, that makes sense. Then you're presented with new information tomorrow that contradicts what you believed today, and then you're like, are you going to reject that new information just because it's new and it would shatter what you believe today?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be like, oh, I guess what I believed yesterday was wrong.
Yeah.
Now I'll be right. And then that might change the next day.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
That is like a radical thing we're describing, because I don't feel like most people operate that way.
So this is the thing, like, for me, I think that it's around, how do I put this? My view of myself, who I am as a person, is not, that is not wrapped up in my opinions and what I believe. So me saying, oh, you know, I was wrong yesterday, like, I actually thought about it some more and now I think this, or I got some new information. That doesn't make me go, oh, like, my I don't know who I am, or like, I'm a terrible person. Because my ideas and my opinions are separate from who I am as a person. They're not one and the same. You know, they're like, I'm growing as a person every day. Like, I'm having experiences. I'm deciding like, oh, I liked that. I didn't like that. Or this value is important to me. Or I don't value this about, you know, this person. But that has nothing to do with my sort of opinions and decision making on, you know, whatever topics, whether it's politics or whether I should be, you know, eating sugar this month or whatever, you know. I think that's where the struggle is for a lot of people. It's like, once you make that kind of like, here is my opinion, that opinion is now a part of me.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it gets hard for people.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe that's what happened to your dad. Like, he saw Sarah Palin speak, and all of a sudden he was a Sarah Palin guy.
Right. And that's it.
And that's it.
That's his identity now.
Instead of being a guy who enjoyed Sarah Palin's first speech.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's like, are you team this or team that? Or that's the culture we live in now. Like, I'm really glad you said that, because I think that's a really powerful distinction to make. Yeah. That people do not separate themselves from their ideas and their opinions.
Yeah.
It's just intermingled with who they are nowadays.
Yeah. And I mean, I think especially when you think about like online identities, you know,
being on brand.
Yeah, like you know, and so many people, their online brand is like positivity. And one thing,
you're not allowed to say anything negative for a second, because that would destroy your brand message.
But also, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a body positive tangent right now, but so I apologize. But when you think about all these Instagram influencers who are so focused on their appearance and, you know, portraying beauty as like thinness or athleticism or, you know, facial symmetry, but then they say that they're all about positivity. Like, you're actually not putting positivity out into the world. Like, what you're putting out into the world is this vision of what you think beauty is, which is actually really negative for people that don't look like you. Deep, I know, little bit of a body positivity tangent, but I just finished watching Shrill on Hulu, and it was amazing and really spoke to me, so I'm all about that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, highly recommend.
I saw it on Hulu because I've been watching Family Guy lately, so I did see it in the corner. Like, I'll check it out.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It spoke to me in like really weird ways. Yeah. Like the guilt that you have from liking yourself when you know you don't look like how you're supposed to look. It's really weird.
Yeah, I think there's something, I feel like the whole conversation is a bit skewed in our culture now, because I feel like it's almost like the argument is what is going to be demonized and what is beauty or what is acceptable. And the thing that concerns me is people are throwing out the concept of health. And we're getting so wrapped up in the optics of things. So
Sure.
it's like, on the one hand, you know, people shouldn't be fat shamed, obviously, but neither should people who are really fit and whatever.
Of course.
But I get what you're saying about when they're putting out this message, like, you need to look like this in order to be hot and beautiful and sexy. Again, it's like, nobody really should be coming out and saying this or this amount of weight or this amount of makeup or this. And I think part of the problem in our society is there's this lack of individuality. And it's totally just like mob thinking. And I think that can be very dangerous either way.
Yeah.
And I think especially when the fact that people aren't talking about health.
Yeah, I mean, on the health point, you know, I think that it's been like, and I don't know about you, but I feel like it's been drilled into me from like such a young age that, you know, overweight, obesity equals unhealthy, which is true for you know, some people, a lot of people. But
diabetes on the rise.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I don't discount that, like, you know, there is like a problem out there, and like children need access to like healthier foods, like more fruit and vegetables, need more opportunities to be active. Like, definitely don't discount that. But you can be like overweight
and still be
really healthy. And so I think that it's just been drilled into us that if you don't look really fit and if you're not thin, you must be unhealthy. That's kind of the nuance of the issue for me anyway. You know, I mean,
there's different body types
exactly.
in general, and people have different metabolisms, and you know, it's not like men and women are different too.
Yeah,
the way
exactly.
they burn fat, the way they build muscle. So you just have to acknowledge the fact that men and women are different. Within men, within women, there's so many differences.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like there's always going to be a range of skin tones and nationalities, ethnicities. People are mixing and intermarrying, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just feel like there's this lack of individuality.
Yeah.
Where it's okay as long as you're healthy, you know, like for your own sake to be healthy. I don't know, like even when I'm swiping now on dating apps, I feel like everybody is the same thing.
Yeah, no,
and
I agree.
Like they all do their makeup the same way, they all dress, and I'm like, I swipe left.
So I was just
constantly.
going to say that about the makeup. If you just, I mean, and maybe it's my Instagram kind of like explore section because of the types of accounts I follow. Like I get like a bunch of like makeup tutorials and things like that. And it's all the same makeup. It's all the contouring, the very matte makeup, and then like the matte kind of like nude lipsticks and kind of, the thing is, and like, I'm going to be really, really mean for a second. You can be the most hideous person in the world and you're going to look good in that makeup. Like, it just looks good on everyone. Like, and you know, if I have a special occasion, maybe I'll do that too. But like, what really bums me out about it is that all of these people who look very different are using this makeup and now they all look exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, I just kind of wish there was a little bit more like, people were accentuating like
what makes you unique.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like for me, like I have like very big eyes, so I like to kind of like, I always curl my eyelashes, put on a ton of mascara because I really want to draw people into my eyes, you know, like maybe someone has like really like beautiful lips or like a really cool beauty mark, like I don't know, but just that like everyone is just doing that one look. it really like bums me out.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not that I think that I'm like the most original individual person out there. Like,
Yeah, but it's the
but-
same thing with like how you dress,
Yeah.
how you do your apartment. It just, I get it, and it's been like this for a while with women, but I don't really understand this whole like these fashion trends that come and go, and women will buy an entirely new wardrobe and then they'll like throw it out and they buy a new one and they feel compelled, like they have to, they don't have a choice.
yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, obviously I'm a guy and we have our own things, but like guys do not operate on that. But like the whole industry is marketed towards women to like buy more makeup, buy these clothes.
Yeah.
No, then skinny leg is out now. Like get bell bottoms,
Yeah,
and then like
yeah.
oh, throw those out. Now this is in style, and it's this never ending. It's like the war on terror.
Yeah.
It's never gonna end.
Yeah.
You know, and like women and people just keep buying into it. It's this self-perpetuating
Yeah.
beast.
I have to say I'm a victim to the to all
Another victim.
the skincare they put out. So this makes me, I can't believe I'm telling people this, but so last year I spent over $1,000 at Sephora. And the reason I know that is because now I'm in like
For the whole year.
For the whole year.
Doesn't sound that much
I
for
mean,
an
like-
average woman in New York, right?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just tight. But when I realized that I had done that, I was like, wow, Maree, you have a problem. You know? So, because now I'm in like the highest loyalty band you can be in because I spent so much money. But
And they're getting discounts, so you want to spend even more?
it's terrible.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just kind of like fell into this like trap last year where, you know, I've noticed some changes in my skin the last couple of years, and I was starting to get a little bit self-conscious about it. And
You mean
know,
like aging?
yeah, aging, that fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I've been lucky. I've always had like pretty good skin, and I think, you know, just starting to see kind of like fine lines and the starts of wrinkles, and you know, I sort of I panicked, and so I just went into this like crazy skincare deep dive, and I bought so much stuff, and I tried so much stuff that didn't work for me.
So that stuff is not necessarily about aesthetics. It's more about healing and replenishing nutrients, that kind of thing? Or?
I mean, I guess you could, you know, it's around like
Not
minimizing.
not to make this into a makeup conversation
sorry,
or whatever,
guys.
but I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's
like, 'cause
like-
I don't know anything about makeup.
Like minimizing kind of like fine lines, or maybe you'll get something like with retinol in it to kind of like stimulate collagen production,
Okay.
plump up your skin a bit more. But yeah, I spent so much money just kind of like trying to find the right thing. And I have to say, I have now found what I think
The
is the
right
perfect
mix
thing
of-
for me, which is great.
Okay.
So now I don't have to spend $1,000 this year. But yeah, no, it's tough because they're always coming out with new things as well.
and if there's something better on the market, you want to try it out.
Exactly.
And then you end up spending
then,
more. And
yeah, all
kind
of a sudden
yeah.
I'm spending like $95 on this cream that may or may not, you know, work for me. So
Do you ever do research before you buy,
mean,
like on YouTube? And 'cause
yeah,
there's tons of
I'll
those.
watch YouTube videos. I'll read articles. The thing is, I mean, you can go in store and ask for a sample, but I feel like with skincare products, you really need to use something for a couple of weeks to start seeing results, you know? So it's tough. You
Yeah.
really need to buy product.
And it also, it depends on how it reacts with your own skin as opposed to some
Exactly.
YouTubers.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I did just take us on
The
a
makeup tangent.
But I do want to bring us back to a point that you brought up a while back around like the very odd logic that some people
Like a predefined that thing, or like where they're already coming to the table with their ideas already made up, or something else.
I mean, I guess I'm just kind of like taking it one step further. But, you know, one thing that kind of really like pisses me off about, and I would say like, you know, have your religion, love it, like, you know, do what you need to do. But one thing that really pisses me off that some people who are religious do is that they find a way to use their religion to actually persecute is too strong a word, but to make other people's lives difficult.
Yeah.
And like the examples I would give
Like
for
through
that
legislation.
through
and things
legislation.
Like that,
So like, you know, pharmacists who won't you know, give birth control to women because they don't believe in it. Bakers who won't bake a wedding cake for a gay couple. Like that stuff like makes me sick. And my opinion on that is like, have your religion, you know what your religion is about, maybe don't pick a career where that's going to become a problem. Because it's not, I really don't believe that it is fair for someone to limit someone else's access to things and to discriminate against on you because you have religion. It's like, I don't, man.
Right.
Like, I'm just trying to live my life, trying to get my birth control pills. Like,
Right.
I don't care if you're religious. I don't care what you do on the weekends. Just give me my thing.
But this is also why, I mean, you're not an activist by any means.
No.
But it's
not at all.
almost like, to some degree, atheists, agnostics, like, you kind of have to be a little bit of an activist, because you can't just sit back, because the religion, they're ready to be active. They're ready to like get Christian soldiers, brothers and sisters into the politics
Yeah.
and change legislation. They're actively mobilizing. So if you're an atheist and you just sit back and think everything's going to be fine, it's like, no, they will take away your rights and make things more difficult for you. So it's like, I know you're like a calm atheist, and a lot of people are, but at the same time, even why I engage in this project for different reasons, but it partially is because I feel like religion did me so much harm over the years. And I know that there are people out there who are stuck in it and they don't think there's a way out. Because I will say, it is very difficult to come out of religion. You lose your community, you lose your identity, you lose family often.
I'm getting goosebumps, you just saying this. You know, I can't even imagine I just can't even imagine how hard that would be.
Yeah.
And how scary it would be.
I mean, I wrestled with it for
so
a couple of years on a number of levels. One is that when you believe that there's a God who loves you, and that, well, okay, I could go on a tangent here, but see, I'm going to go on the tangent.
Okay, go.
But like, here's part of the problem of why Christianity is alluring to people, and I guess Islam as well, is if you take highly dissatisfied people, right? Because Christianity in this evangelical framework in America nowadays, they say things that are not untrue, in the sense of, are people letting you down? Is your heart broken? Are you having a hard time making ends meet? Are things not going your way? Or, you know, are you feeling hurt by people and misled? Or people, all of those things are happening to everybody.
Yeah.
And they come along and they offer the solution, which is God loves you, and there's this perfect Jesus who will never let you down in the way that all these other people will, you know?
Yeah.
So when that is, you said earlier about the emotionality of, when you combine it with that, and you're a person who's hurt, and like your boyfriend or girlfriend just broke up with you, and you're broke, and you go to church and people are like, hey brother, like, it's good to see you here.
Yeah.
And then you start singing the songs and all the emotions are going, and then it's so easy for people to get swept up in it.
Yeah. And it is nice to be
I get
around
it.
so many really nice, kind, caring people as well. Like the community aspect.
Yeah.
Is
because there's
amazing.
there's not really much of an alternative to that.
No.
Like, let's say you're a lonely atheist who people are shitting all over you, and let's say you don't go to church and get those warm fuzzies. Where else are you going to go to get those warm fuzzies? Or where else are you going to go to get a message of hope?
Yeah.
So I get it, why it's so alluring to people,
Yeah.
and why people turn to religion, because they will feel better. They will find this quote-unquote savior. They will have hope, where even if things don't work out in this life, it doesn't matter, because they're going to die and be in heaven with God for eternity. So all of their problems will magically be, you know, whisked away, and they'll live in perfect serenity with God after they die. That is a promise that nobody can come and refute.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, it's a pretty
it's-
sweet deal.
Yeah, it's just like the same thing with how you take people in the desert in the Middle East who have no food and no whatever, and then they say, hey, strap a bomb, get 72 virgins in heaven, do it. And they're like, okay, that sounds way better than what I have now. And then they do it.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it's very evil and sinister to manipulate people that way. It's weird. I mean, I'm saying all of this partially because I was in the middle of that for so long, and I get it, the allure of it. But part of the reason why I do this project, why I do Confusianity, is to reach out to maybe a few people out there who are in religion, but they're unsatisfied, and they feel like they want it to be true, but they're starting to feel the effects of how it really is not actually true.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know what the future of Confusianity will be, which direction I'll take it, but I could see, and I know there are like atheist organizations and there's like recovery from religion support groups, and I think, you know, that's great. So this could end up being, you know, or at least I could provide information to people to funnel them into support groups and whatnot. But even that, I feel like there's only certain resources to help people transition out of religion.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like once you're out of religion, you're just back out in the real world and nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Especially in New York, you're just another person walking down the street.
Totally.
Like, they don't care how you feel.
I have to say, that's what I love about New York. I love that I walk down the street, no one looks at me, no one's giving a shit about me.
Right.
Like, there's something very liberating about that anonymity, but then there's also something very powerful about knowing, like, no one gives a shit about me, and I'm out here doing my thing, and I'm not scared, and it doesn't matter if I fail and there's no one to catch me, because I got this.
Yeah.
You know? But
see, that's another thing. I feel like as an atheist, and when you talked about your background, feeling like you're not inherently bad, and you're just figuring things out, and you're doing the best you can, and you're basically just, what do I want? That's the wavelength that you're operating under. But I feel like by having that mindset at a young age, it empowers you to be able to come into a place like New York and hold your head up high and feel confident that you're here doing what you want to do, which is great. But for all those people out there who don't have that strong sense of confidence, then it's a shame. And I feel like religion makes it worse for people because it makes them dependent on the Holy Spirit or like God or Jesus. And I was in it for so long, and it was just like, I wanted it to be, I needed it to be so real, and it wasn't, and it left me falling flat on my face. So, but they drill in that message of like, you're not good enough and you can't do it on your own, no matter what it is, whether it's to run that marathon, whether it's to get that job, whether it's to be a millionaire. I mean, unless you're going to go to Joel Osteen, I don't know if you know who that is. He's that really sunshiny preacher guy. I'll send you a link later and you'll laugh hysterically.
I bet I will.
But he's very like positive Christianity. That's all like, he doesn't even quote the Bible that much or say Jesus. He's just like,
you are blessed and you cannot be cursed. That whatever you touch will prosper and succeed.
The best you can be, and he wants you to be successful, and you know. But that's like a certain genre.
Interesting.
Of Christianity. But yeah, religion concerns me because I feel like it makes people dependent. It taps into truths in people's lives. Like, fine, you're not good enough. You're imperfect. You're always going to mess up. You know, people are going to let you down. Like, all of those things are true.
Yeah.
But they take that, package it neatly, put you in an emotional setting, and then it's like a snake oil salesman or whatever.
I mean, I don't know, just listening to you like go through that made me realize kind of how lucky I am to have been raised the way I was. Like, no one, when I was being raised, like, no one really told me like I couldn't do anything or I wouldn't be able to do anything. Like, never was I ever not good enough, you know? It was always just the sense of like, just try and see what happens, you know? And I guess, you know, I'm realizing now how much I've taken that for granted.
Well, that's good that we're having this chat then, because that's another thing for you to appreciate.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, like have a lot of gratitude right now. Yeah. Cool. Especially for my grandma. She was great. I think I get my sense of humor from her.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
You do have a good sense of humor.
Thank you. Yeah, she was a hilarious lady. But she always, you know, she was very much about like get an education, like you'll go far, do what you want. Yeah. And I mean, this was a woman who never learned how to drive. You know what I mean? She didn't really go very far, so pretty cool.
Cool. Well, we have about like another 15 minutes or so. My next question was you brought up your grandmother. I was going to ask, what do you think happens when we die?
I just kind of think it's like going to sleep.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Lately that's what I think too.
You know, and I hope, and you know, I hope this for everyone. I hope that when I die, I just get into bed one night and then I just go to sleep.
You just don't wake up.
So, you know, I think it would be a lot harder to be, you know, unwell, to be in a
Right.
hospital, to know that it's coming.
Yeah.
I think that
anticipation is what will be the worst.
Yeah, the anticipation I think will be really hard. But yeah, for me, I just imagine it's like going to sleep.
Yeah.
And, you know, do I think that the soul kind of like lives on? I don't know. I haven't really figured that one out
I
yet.
mean, it sounds like a nice idea, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I think it's also nice. It's nice for the people left behind, I think.
Right.
You know?
I've been to so many Christian funerals where obviously everybody's sad,
Yeah.
but at the same time they say things like, praise Jesus, though they're with the Lord right now in heaven and paradise, you know, and they say it over and over and over again, almost
Yeah.
to convince themselves that it's true.
And so in that sense, I would love to believe that like the soul lives on, you know, because I think it's just, you know, when you lose someone, it's nice to feel like they're still around. But, you know, I think what you have to remember as well, like, hopefully when and if you lose, you know, someone you love in your life, you know, you have a healthy mind, you have all those memories, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, I haven't been to a lot of funerals. All the ones in my family, everyone gets cremated. Usually a pretty small affair. We'll go to kind of like a chapel at a crematorium. It'll be a very short service. And then we have a wake afterwards, which is usually just kind of at someone's home or whatever.
So does that mean there's not a lot of graves?
Usually the crematorium will be in sort of, there will be like another part of the cemetery which is for like graves and burials, and the crematorium will be kind
So
of
some
to the
people
side.
choose to just do the ashes in an urn and the
Yeah.
family will take it home, and then other
Yeah.
people choose to get buried. Like,
Well, so what most of my family has done is there are like rose gardens. So they'll put a plaque up with your name on it and, you know, from X year to X year, and then the ashes are put in the rose garden.
Okay.
Or you could take the ashes in an urn and keep them, or release them somewhere else that's important to you. But yeah, most of my family are in the rose garden.
is that, do you have any idea in Australia? Is that kind of the more common way to do things? Or?
I wouldn't say that it's more common. My assumption is why my family does it that way is that none of us are overly religious. So it economically, it actually makes the most sense.
Yeah, you mean like to save on a funeral, the burial, all that, thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper to get cremated.
Yeah.
But I mean that's
It's crazy when you think about it, how everything is a business.
Oh yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's sick.
Yeah.
Totally sick. I mean, you know, I shouldn't say that, because I do think the work that people do at funeral homes, you know, is very important, because grieving is such a difficult thing for people. So I don't want to discount the work they do by any means. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Everything is a business, you know. But yeah, I recently, in November last year, I went to my first ever Catholic funeral. Totally different vibe. Like with the funerals.
How many funerals have you been to in your life at all?
So I would have been both sets of my grandparents have passed, so that's 4. And then my dad's brother, my uncle, he died when I was probably 10, so probably 5. Yeah, so not that many, thankfully.
So this was the first religious funeral? Okay.
Yeah. Totally different vibe, in the sense that it was just like it was a lot quieter. Like I feel like at the funerals I've been to with my family, I don't want to say people are happy, but people are trying so hard to focus on the good things that everyone's sharing stories.
It's a celebration of a life.
Yeah.
And everyone's sad, but it's a bittersweet experience, right?
Yeah, like at my grandma's funeral, and you know, she had cancer, so she knew she was going to die, and they had asked everyone to wear bright colors to her funeral, and you know, the flowers.
That's how she would have wanted it.
And the flowers were sunflowers. I'm pretty sure sunflowers or daisies. Like it was just like a very colorful experience. But anyway, so back to this Catholic funeral. You know, there was the wake the day before, which I'd never experienced.
I've never been to a wake.
And you know, it's at a funeral home, and you can go and you can sit and you can go and, you know, pay your respects to the person who's passed. And the family will be there for most of the day, so people can come and go and pay their respects to the family. Then the following day, there's a procession to the church. There's a service there. Then there is a procession to the cemetery, and then there is the burial. So it really was, I mean, there's a lot of time that goes into it. I mean, I feel like the stuff my family does, like, it's over in like 35 minutes. Then we all just go back to someone's house and have a beer, you know, drown our sorrows a bit.
Yeah. Tell stories. And
Yeah. It was a much more somber event, I think, because of all the rituals.
The Catholic one is more somber.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say so. That was my experience anyway.
Hmm.
You know, it was especially sad because it was raining. You know, it was like you see that stuff in the movies,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah. But what about you?
It's weird, even listening to you talk about it, I feel sad. I tend to be a person who it won't take much to make me feel sad, but I don't know, plus I just turned 42 today,
Oh,
so I'm like
gosh.
1 year closer to my
You
demise.
will be fine.
But
you
but
will
like,
be fine.
life is so short, and I feel like we just have such a small amount of time. I feel like we all take life for granted in a sense of like lately my views being an agnostic is very similar to what you described. I feel like probably the same way you just were born into this world and you had some sort of consciousness at some point along the way.
Yeah.
You're going to die, and that's the end of your consciousness, and you the electricity in the brain, it's like nothing is functioning anymore, so it's just like done. And I think the idea of a soul is a poetic, beautiful, lovely thing, but a lot of these things I think about lately are potentially just constructions used to deal with death.
Yeah.
And, you know, finite lifespans.
Yeah.
Because it does help people cope, the people left behind.
Totally.
But again, it doesn't make it true. It's just a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So, but from where I was 10 years ago and coming out of religion, I was kind of terrified of like, wow, what if you die? Well, I couldn't wrap my head around how atheists believe. Because I'm like, you just believe you just die and that's it? Like, that's end of story, game over? Like, that's it? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, how are you not walking around depressed every day? Like, your clock is ticking. It took me a while to struggle with that. And I still have moments where I struggle with that. But I have come to a place now where it's almost like a point of acceptance that my life, my little brief blip on this multi-billion, trillion light-year universe and infinite time before and after me doesn't really matter. But
I mean,
it might sound like a terrible thing, but in a way it can be freeing.
in the grand scheme of things, does it matter? Probably not. Does it matter to you and the world that you build and the friends and family and loved ones you have in your life? Yes, of course it matters.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's that distinction. You can matter to, you know, to me. That doesn't mean that you have to matter to the universe. You know what I mean? But what you were saying about life is so short, I feel very differently about that. And there's this great quote which is, life is really long if you know how to use it.
So what does that mean though? Like how do you use it properly?
I think it's just I think it will be different for everyone, but I think for me, it's doing things that I enjoy, nurturing positive relationships with people that I love and care about, traveling, having new experiences. If I could do like all of those things every day of my life, which of course I can't, like I have to have a job and like, you know, pay the bills, but you know, I think life can be really long. You can get to the end of it and be like, man, I had a good run.
I did all the things I wanted to do.
You know, I mean, there's always going to be more things that you want to do. Just like living in New York. You know what I mean? There's 5 things you could do on Saturday night, but you can only pick 2 or 3.
Right.
But it's about figuring out, I think, what's important to you, what you enjoy, what you value, and really focusing on those things, you know. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, if I drop dead now, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I would have wanted to do, but I had a really good run, you know. I feel really lucky with everything that I've had, and I have a lot of gratitude. Of course, it would be very sad, and I would be very sad to say goodbye to people that I love so soon, but yeah, I would feel like I had a good run. So that's a different take on it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. But I can totally understand though, like, I think the reason I think I can be like that is that sort of like self.
From the beginning you had that. Yeah, I
had that sense of self and that kind of like, that knowing that like at the end of the day, I came into this world alone and I'm going out alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to me how to make what happens in the middle really fucking good.
Right. I like that. I want to have the same mindset for my life. I think the thing that I get frustrated with is I feel behind. Because I feel like I wasted so much time, and I try not to be bitter about religion and all the negative thinking and the.
Yeah.
But the fact is, it's like, you know, a lot of years are gone.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that's resentment is it's a really difficult emotion, I think, to deal with. Feel like it seeps in a lot, but I guess like no one is going to be able to do this from like day one. But what I would suggest when you have those feelings is kind of just like taking a breath and being like, you know what? The energy I'm using on having this feeling right now and being resentful, it's not useful.
Yeah.
Think of all the great things I could be doing with that energy. Think of all the things I could be doing with that energy that would make me happy. And that's a really, really, really hard place to get to.
Yeah.
Like, it'll take like years of practice, probably some therapy, but I think
it's a worthwhile
worthwhile
to
exercise.
Figure that out
and I mean, like, I can totally obviously I can't say I understand the sense because I didn't have the same experience, but I can try to understand how you would feel left behind, or that you're behind.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm trying to play catch up.
That you're trying to play catch up with everyone else who, you know, I don't know.
They were doing what they wanted to from
exactly.
the day one. And,
so you're trying to catch up on all the experiences that you didn't have. But, you know.
At the same time, though, I'm getting older and I kind of don't care anymore about
life's not a competition.
Yeah, like I certainly am not trying to live my life now like a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, we'll go out tonight for my birthday. I'll have a couple drinks, and then I want to say God willing, I'll only have a couple drinks. But like last year, I drank too much, and we'll see what happens this year. But it's gonna be a small party, only a few people, so I don't think people are gonna be like getting me drunk or anything.
Yeah.
So I'll have a few drinks, but I think, you know, being in my 40s now, entering in, I'm kind of accepting kind of the slower pace and just, I don't know, it's weird because with my agnostic atheist thoughts now about death and like, it's sort of relieved a lot of pressure in the sense of like, so what if I'm running out of time? You know, I'll do what I can and want with the time that I have left, but like if I don't achieve A, B, or if I don't achieve RT, you know, SR, RST, UV down the road, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, if I only make it to JKL, then that's it. You know, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, so like you said, like you had a good run, like kind of that sentiment.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm kind of getting there. I'm starting to feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, accepting things as they are. I'm definitely on a path, though. Like, I'm still striving toward things in life that I want.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. But I feel like some of that pressure has been relieved, that I don't have to... You don't really have to do anything. Nobody has to do anything.
Oh, no.
And that can be an epiphany for some people. Because, you know, when you feel like you have to get married, you have to have kids.
Yeah.
And not even in an obligatory sense, but you think you really want that.
Oh, yeah.
And you think, of course I have to.
Yeah. So I just have to interrupt you to tell you what, and I believe I have coined this term. It's what I call the hetero timeline, which is a certain age that you're meant to like meet someone, certain age you're meant to like, I shouldn't say certain age, but after a certain amount of time with that person, you're meant to move in together. Then once you've lived together for a little while, you're meant to get married. Then once you've been married for a little while, you're meant to have kids. And like, there's all these things that heterosexuals like think that we need to do because it's been drilled into us from such a young age. I mean, when I was a kid, like, you know, I used to like have like a toy baby that I would like feed and it would pee. It was called a baby born. Like, I would feed the baby and then I would put her on the potty and she would pee. Like, what? Like,
that's fun.
Like, why was that fun for me? I don't know, but whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is like, you know, now that, because I'm 30 at the moment and I'm cool with that, whatevs. But people ask me like, oh, you know, like, when are you and your boyfriend moving in together? And, you know, people ask me like, do you want children? Like, when do you think you would start having them? Because, you know, you're 30 now. And I kind of feel a bit like, I don't have to be on your timeline. And you get these kind of like sad eyes from people because, oh, well, you know, if she doesn't try now, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, it's kind of...
well, you've told me before, right? Like, you don't really want to have kids necessarily.
I mean, I would say like a couple of years ago, I was very adamant that I didn't want to have children. I have changed my tune on this slightly in the past 2 years. And to be perfectly honest, purely because like I'm in a relationship with someone who I think is like the bomb. And so the way I think about it now is I do not want to plan my life around potentially having kids. If that's something that, you know, we chose to do and it was the right time for both of us, I would be cool with that. But I'm not gonna be like, oh, okay, well, you know, by the time I turn 33, you better like impregnate me. Like, that's just not for me. But yeah, I think the change from like definitely not wanting kids to being open to the idea really just came from being in a relationship where I was like, wow, we're two really cool people. Like, I bet we could teach like a little human some really cool stuff. You know, I mean, I've also thought about the idea of like fostering as well. Like, maybe if I was a bit older.
Yeah, that's always an option.
Yeah, like I think I could, I don't know, like I know it sounds really obnoxious, but like I think I could teach like a little human some like good things about life, you know?
That's totally not obnoxious at all.
I don't know. I mean, I don't sound like I haven't figured out or anything, but yeah. And so I guess like as well, it freaks...
Like I feel similarly. Like I feel like I could teach a kid some good shit.
You know?
Like, don't say shit. No, like it's okay to say shit.
Yeah.
Who the fuck cares?
Exactly. But yeah, I think it irks people who are obsessed with the hetero timeline. Like, it irks them that I don't have that, you know, paternal drive. But the thing is...
So that's what I was going to ask you earlier. When you the hetero timeline term. When you say it, do you mean just a generic timeline that's the same phases for everybody, but it varies for person? Pretty much. Like, I mean, what the time spans are for each. But you think everybody kind of has that same...
It's like this. It's the steps. Yeah. I mean, I think depending on where you live, like New York City, for example, people
push it into the 30s, 40s.
People start the timeline later. You live like
the Bible Belt.
Exactly.
Like, you're going to be married by 23 or it's too late.
But I think it's the same steps for everyone. And I just like, I don't know. I just think it's like a little close-minded.
To have to stick to that hetero timeline.
Yeah. You should be able to skip some of the steps, do some of the steps before the others if you want. Like, you know, it's also totally okay to have like a really like, you know, a great relationship for 10, 15 years and then decide it's not working anymore and move on. Like, that's okay too. Like, I don't know why we box ourselves in like this.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, just to kind of wrap it up and like tie it back in. It's almost kind of the same thing as what we were talking about earlier with the makeup, with the fashion, with this hetero timeline. We're human beings in this system, in the matrix, basically. And we feel compelled to do things a certain way because that's just how they're done. And we don't question it. We're not individualistic about it. We don't think, oh, what does my face look like? Maybe I would like to accentuate my ears. Even though nobody does that, but I really like my ears. Nobody thinks like that, or like a very small percentage of people think like that. And I think that would make the world a far more interesting and beautiful and lovely place if people got off the treadmill of this rat race, maybe made less money, maybe didn't do all the million things and but they created a life for themselves that they're happy with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what a nice, beautiful world. Because I just feel like people are actually miserable out there. A lot of people.
Yeah, because they're trying to stay on the treadmill. They're trying to live up to this person's expectations of them. They're trying to make X amount of money. You know, they feel guilty about X, Y, and Z. They're insecure about, you know, A, B, and C. Like, life is hard.
And we make it even harder.
We make it even harder for us. That's the thing, like, as a blanket statement, whatever your situation, life is hard, full stop. It's hard for everyone. Yes, it is easier for some and harder for others, depending on your circumstances. But, yeah, we make it harder for ourselves. You know, all these kind of, like, pressures, you know, I mean, yes, like, opting out of society is kind of like not really an option.
But there's a middle ground.
But yeah, there's a middle ground. Right. You know, like you can go into work and kind of be like, you know what, I've actually realized that it's important to me to be home by 6 o'clock so I can spend time with my family. Like that's going to be how it is from now on. You can do that. Or you can say like, I don't know, like you can say to your mom like, hey, like it makes me feel really bad when you tell me like that maybe I should go to the gym. And, you know, maybe that'll be a weird conversation, but, like, it's okay. You can tell people these things. You don't have to, like, go home and brew over it and be like, oh, like, you know, work will be mad at me if I don't do this, or, like, my mom, like, will be let down if I don't do that. It's fine, you know?
Yeah. I'm really glad you said that because I feel like that's something I've been trying to work at lately, where I'm just okay speaking up and expressing myself and not feeling like there's anything wrong with me having my viewpoint and just sharing that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because I think I've been kind of raised to be a certain way as like a beta male. So you just kind of want to please everybody and have everybody like you. And in the end, I feel like guys and I guess people in general like that who do that, you end up you can't please everybody. That's just a given. But you end up feeling dissatisfied and almost like you're selling yourself out. And I think people often go to bed that night feeling like a little bit I know there were plenty of nights in my 20s, I feel like, where it just wasn't all adding up in the church, being single, feeling incomplete, like I have to be married in order to experience God and his plan and all that. And I would go to bed feeling like I was trying to be something that I wasn't, you know? And I think that's why I'm more content now with my decision-making process, is that I do more things that I want to do. Yeah. And, you know, even if it doesn't pan out, I'm still glad I tried it, like you said, like trial and error, like going through life. Like that is a much healthier, more positive way, I think, to go through life. Yeah. So I feel good about that more recently. But again, it's a process.
Yeah. And it's hard, you know. I mean, and it's something that, you know, even I kind of like still work on every day, every other day.
While we're still plugged into the matrix. Exactly. Like we still obey the rules of the matrix.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So, yeah.
Cool.
Well.
Yeah, we got to wrap now.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks so much for having me. I hope, maybe when you're in town next, we can do a...
Part 2.
Part
Sequel.
2,
yeah. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, thanks, man.
I really enjoyed my chat with Maree, and I hope you did too. Honestly, it made me kind of jealous of being raised without religion. How you could just be free to explore your identity, interests, and curiosities without fear of condemnation from a loving Heavenly Father who will banish you to hell if you don't get it right. Right, of course, meaning that you acknowledge that you're a sinner worthy of hell, but believe that the shedding of Jesus' blood makes you A-OK and worthy of heaven. Anyway, I'd like to point out that I never intended this podcast to be solely interviews of other agnostics and atheists. Although the first 4 episodes have been just that, I'm glad to say that our next episode will feature a conversation between me and a good friend of mine from back in high school days. Interestingly enough, back then I was a devout Christian and he was basically an agnostic atheist with religion not part of his life at all. And now for the past 10 plus years, the tables have been turned. He became a Christian, whereas I, of course, left the church and became an agnostic. Hence, episode 5 of the Confusianity podcast will feature its first currently Christian guest. Will sparks fly? Surely. but 'tis all in good fun between two friends. And yes, it is quite possible for atheists and Christians to be good friends, despite the latter believing the former will eventually be burning in hell for eternity. So yeah, stick around for that juicy episode in a couple weeks. Hopefully by now you're already subscribed to the Confusianity podcast on your platform of choice, so you can get notified as soon as future episodes get published. Also, if you've been enjoying listening, please leave a nice rating and a glowing review on Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you have family and friends who would be interested in the sorts of things we've been talking about these last few weeks, send them a link to the podcast. And last but not least, we're approaching 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so please help us get there sooner rather than later. The URL is just youtube.com/Confusianity. Not only can you access all podcast episodes there, but check out the Thinking Out Loud series as well. New episodes every Sunday. Some good food for thought there. Think of it as a 1-minute replacement for Sunday morning church. That's all for now. Until next time, my friends.